So I wrote two pieces that will be in this show. The first one was based on a short story by the UK-based fantasy writer Neil Gaiman. He has a huge fan base and a super fan on staff here at Touchstone. So the story came my way, and it's got a very ostentatious name. It's The Forbidden Brides of the Faceless Slaves in the Secret House of the Night of Dread Desire. So as you can hear, there's this really overblown, excessive fantasy, sort of luscious, a crumpled velvet and lace sleeved kind of fancy quality to this story. And essentially what the story is about is a writer who's attempting to write the novel of all novels, a familiar story. And so the story is structured to be a writer. You sort of move in and out of the narrative of the story he's writing. So what we did when we brought it to the stage was set up Bill George as this tortured writer, and we have an actor, Emma Chong, enacting the story that he's written. But the joke, or the way that it applies to Touchstone's overall show, is that this is a fantasy writer who's essentially living in and writing an epic, ridiculous, ostentatious fantasy novel. So he's writing what he thinks is realism, and he's failing to do that. So he has a creepy butler, he has a waifish urchin chambermaid who's attempting to kill him behind his back, he has a witch like Aunt Agatha chained to the bedpost up in the upper room that's rattling her chains and howling throughout the piece. And he's attempting to write, he's a classicist, he calls himself. He's attempting to write a very serious piece of fiction. And he's, without giving everything away, there's a reversal where he's visited by a wise bird, a wise owl, a la Poe, and who encourages him to step outside of his everyday experience and write fantasy, man. Fantasy is where it's at, brother. And then we see this novelist go into what we would recognize as very standard realism, contemporary realism, and that is it. Eureka, he says at the end. So what's fun about that is it's sort of, I think the original intention of the story was that it was sort of poking at the literary community's disdain for fantasy fiction, and it reverses that. So that's been really fun. The staging of it, again, is totally over the top. The characters are completely over the top. They're playing stereotypes that anybody who reads fantasy will recognize. So that's the first piece. I wrote that, directed it. It's a big ensemble piece, so the whole cast plays some part in that, including me. I do some voiceover in it. So that's been a lot of fun.